I say this, I kind of get into trouble a bit in the industry for saying this, but we film weddings. You know, we're not Oscar winners. We're not, you know, doing kind of really, we're not war journalists or whatever. We're filming weddings, which is, you know, one step away from kids' birthday parties, isn't it?
The goal isn't to live forever. The goal is to create something that will.
Welcome to Perspective, a podcast for wedding creatives, where we sit down, often with a special guest, and talk about our many years of experience in the wedding industry so that you can learn from us and to help grow your wedding business. This is the first episode of Season 3 of the podcast, and we've managed to wrangle on internationally sought after wedding videographer and photographer Philip White. With a career spanning over 500 weddings in over 30 different countries, this former global ambassador for Sony's client list includes the royal family, Oscar winners, and some of the world's most recognisable names. This episode is of course sponsored by With Jack, and now for a limited time only, Beans IE. So Greg, what are we drinking?
We have got some Cat and Cloud coffee, and it's the Answer blend.
Yes.
Cat and Cloud are a roaster from Santa Cruz, California, and it was sent over as part of the subscription through beans.ie.
Yep.
And I've made mine up on the espresso in the office, and it's with a wee sort of flat white style, so I'm getting some caramel notes in it.
Yep, and I am I'm locked down in my house right now for this episode, but I did mine on the well, it was a pour over actually, the V60, and it's delicious. So
you're supposed to be getting some pronounced fruit, chocolate, and caramel notes if you're picking that up.
Yeah. So the reason why we're drinking this coffee is because, and this is going to be a live ad read here, guys, so bear with me. As photographers and filmmakers and business owners, we know the power of stories, and Beans IE do too. Beans IE started because they knew there were so many stories to tell about the world of coffee, and not just about the regions or the varieties, but about the people behind the beans, the roasters, and us, the drinkers. This is the most flexible coffee subscription that we've ever used, showcasing some of the top roasters around the world who are bringing something new to the table. Look, I mean, you've been listening to Greg and I talk about what we've been drinking on this podcast for a while now, but with this, you can join us. Curate your own monthly subscription for an ever-changing list of beautiful coffees, and because we love you guys, we have contacted Mark of Beans IE, and he's given us a promotional code. So if you go to Beans IE and you use Perspective 15, that is Perspective 15, you can get 15% off your first order for coffees with stories sent straight to your door. Beans IE. Oh, I nailed that ad read, yes. I was so nervous about that ad read, guys. But yeah, so Philip, what are you drinking over there?
Can I get some free coffee first off? That's my first question. I only really
I'm sure we could send you a bag of coffee. We could send you a bag of coffee if you wanted to after this.
Honestly, I nearly sent you a bag of coffee, but I didn't.
Oh,
just time to pour over and everything else. I've shot weddings with like photographers, and I've often took like beans and things just as that, you know, that introductory like, hi, I've got you a gift. You've not got me a gift, so I've automatically got the upper hand. I've done that a few times. But yeah, what coffee am I drinking? I thought this was alcohol. I'd prepared for alcohol, but I can.
It can be alcohol if you want.
No.
Midday drinking.
We can go back to alcohol. The bean situation is quite boring, but I've just bought a new machine, so I was going mainstream Lavazza, and I dialed the machine into kind of like the perfect settings for that, and then it's the most boring conversation ever. But I've just got I've just got some Booth's original beans, and I had to change all my settings over again just to get a good shot out of that. But yeah, it's a good machine. Our main machine died in the middle of lockdown because everyone was drinking it. Even like my eldest, my kids were on about 15 cups a day, and then it finally gave up. So we're about two weeks into a new machine, so it's good.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how is the family? Are they still on that caffeine high?
Yeah, they're good. One of them has gone. So eldest daughter has gone back to uni. We all just couldn't stand each other anymore, and having pretty much 4 adults, because my kids are like a bit older now. But yeah, so the eldest just went, I can't cope with this. So went back, and even though she wasn't allowed back into kind of halls at university, she just rented a house with 6 of her mates. And so yeah, everyone's good. Everyone's under everyone's feet. It's the same with every house around the world, but we're all good. We're all healthy. That's the main thing.
Excellent, man. You got 2 girls, am I right?
Yeah, 2 girls.
Yeah.
They are
okay.
21 and 16 in a couple of weeks' time.
Oh,
so,
man.
Yeah. And all the birthdays have been over lockdown, so it's been like the worst. It was like 21st birthday couldn't happen because of lockdown.
No.
It was like 15th birthday last year. Now the 16th birthday is going to be in lockdown, and my wife's 40th birthday, and everyone's big birthdays it's just not happened because of this thing. But
yeah, we're starting to get round to this first set of birthdays in lockdown. We're doing it again, and it's like, oh man! But having a big one, the 21st, that's mental.
Yeah,
man. That's crazy.
It probably saved me a bit of money in the end, but yeah.
Oh, I don't think so, because you'll have to make up for this.
She's going to do it again. There'll be another party at some point. I don't think she'll forget about it, but yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us today.
No, not at all.
Obviously, we know you're a busy man.
I'm not at all at the moment.
Well, okay, maybe not right now. But in the intro, I used the word wrangle on purpose, because I've been hassling you to come on this podcast for ages.
Yeah, it's been a long time, and you're not alone as well. I mean, oh god, that sounds quite big-headish, but there's a lot of kind of requests for podcasts, and a lot of people are doing podcasts, and I think you've been asking the longest. And
of course, never take no for an answer.
Yeah, well, do you know what? That is exactly right. I just think at the moment you caught me in a window of about 5 minutes where I think I said to my wife, I'm going to start saying yes more to people. And then you appeared, and I went, I'm going to say yes. And kind of just and do it. But yeah, I'm pleased to be with you.
Yeah. Well, for people out there, I mean, obviously I've given you a quick introduction, but in 2019 you were recognized as one of the world's top 5 most influential event filmmakers.
I think so. Yeah. There's a lot of these things kind of pop up.
Yeah, but I'm trying to. It was 600 industry peers, wasn't it? Who took this? Yeah. So out of 600 industry peers, you're in the top 5. I mean, what does that even feel like?
Do you know, I'll probably dissect a lot of stuff. Do you know what? Before we just come on, we were talking about being honest as well, and I think it's if your name's out there as well. Like, I'm under no illusion that I've got a course out there that has got a lot of people from around the world. So if you start asking people to vote on things, or you start doing surveys and people go, oh yeah, well I've took something from that, then those people are going to say the name that they've just bought a course from, or they're aware of. So again, these things are, I don't know, awards are good, and I'm sure we'll kind of speak about that later on, but it's putting yourself in a position to be into these things, and whether you do that at the start of your career or I'm just on a similar note. I don't do kind of like the awards things or anything anymore. Like, it's a weird kind of position I'm in, and just as like to kind of understand it, I actually was nominated for something last week that was huge, and I came into my wife and I couldn't even speak, and I just showed her the email. And I don't know, I think you mentioned this in one of your emails. We may talk about it later, but it was like I made a film, a non-wedding related film. It's the only other thing that I've ever made that's non-wedding related. And
is this The Dressmaker?
Yeah. And it's it's somehow being kind of played at like the Cannes Film Festival. And I walked into with my wife, open mouth. I was like, look at this. And I told her, and she literally told me to hang my pants up. like in response, like straight away. I was doing some like job in the garden, and I just walked away and was like, right, okay, that is where we're at now. That's just keeping it real 101, isn't it? You know,
straight back down to
earth. That's it. Get carried away for 5 minutes and yeah, but that's it. I'm nowhere near like I was years ago. I think I used to, I'd say kind of obsess about these things, like the Wedding Industry Awards, which is like the English kind of one. I remember I did well in that the first year, and then every time that happened on an annual basis, I was just wired to it. I was like, am I gonna get anywhere? Am I gonna do this? Am I gonna, because it actually made a difference in terms of how many bookings you got and everything else. And I just remember thinking, God, this is so unhealthy. This is so unhealthy. I was stood in a room with like waiting for an announcement to be made for like the winner's announcement, and remember thinking to myself, I've never felt as bad physically. I've never felt as like all the emotions in one go. And it's just, and then I think like the year after, I just thought, I don't need this stress. This is, you know, and I'd done a few, and I'd won a few, and I got to a place with it, and I thought, yeah, this has done really well for me and everything else. But you see a lot of people kind of, I think at the start of people's careers, go for them. You've got to look at what brides think, don't you? You know, and I like couples think. I'm buying into that, but couples go and kind of, you know, and they'll see you've won an award, and it could be a shit award, or you could be, you know, in the top, you know, you could have come 99th, or you've just been given a badge or whatever, but it's still, someone will see it and then book you based on that because you are an award winner. So
yeah, I mean, let's face it, that badge for best experimental short from Cannes, come on, that's got to be a pretty cool badge to put on your site.
Yeah, but where'd you, I don't know. I don't think there's no room on the site for those things. There's a separate site for the film, but
there's you have to sweep past all the other accolades. Ah, man, like, where does this one fit on the wall? The wall's filled.
There's no room. Where's this trophy gonna go?
Oh man!
Earlier, you mentioned that you thought you were going to be drinking alcohol, and that sort of reminded me about the last time we were hanging out together was in that flat in Rotterdam, all jamming about in the guitar.
Yeah, you guys
pretty damn drunk.
I totally forgot you came to the flat. Yeah, maybe because of that. In fact, you know what? And I didn't drink that night. Which people who know me will be like,
maybe sounds familiar, actually.
I didn't drink that night because I had a flight to catch at 6 a.m. the following morning. And I was the one guy who thought, you know what, I'm not going to, by the time I get back to the place I was staying, I'm not going to sleep. So I thought, right, I'll power through. And so I didn't sleep. And I stayed awake. I think we ordered some pizzas in when everyone else had gone. And then I literally just travelled straight to the airport. And what happened was, I know we're going slightly off topic here, we'll come back to it, but they wouldn't let me on the flight because I don't think I took the original flight out. I think I changed flights because something happened. And so when that happens, they just cancel your place on the return leg. And so I was as tired as I've like ever been. I'd been awake for a couple of days. And they wouldn't let me on the flight, and it was just horrible. It was just absolutely horrible. I think I was just sat in tears outside of this airport, and then I bought a pod, and I slept in the pod in the airport for the rest of the day. But I didn't drink then, but...
I was going to say, just as well you didn't drink.
But
just as well, that's crazy.
That's a one-off. That's probably that's one of the only nights in the last few years maybe that I haven't drank.
Yeah.
I think me and Tom got back from... Simon was sensible and went home early, but me and Tom got back at like 4 a.m. in the morning and then had to check out by 10. And the rest of that day we just spent walking around Rotterdam hungover.
We barely knew where we were going as well. Like, it was just,
It's a good event. I'd urge Carlos to do. It's for love's sake, isn't it? Just in case anyone's kind of. So it's out of all the kind of video events that are out there, and I think more and more frequently now, new ones are popping up. I think Carlos kind of made it with love, I'll say. He put his heart and soul into it, and it was really personal. Yeah, it was it was good.
Yeah. I remember that one being the first workshop where I think Greg and I had invested into education. And I remember the first one being like, a little bit of an eye-opener as to like what, like, because I went there with the feeling of just like I was just going to weddings and kind of doing the same thing, and I was just turning into a little bit of a robot, with no personality.
Yeah.
And I remember going there and I was thinking, oh man, like I'm doing this all wrong,
Yeah, there's quite a lot of speakers. I think because there was, you guys were at 2 of them, weren't you? Right? We met at both of them, and I think the second one there was more speakers, and I don't know, some of the speakers were useless, man. I mean, just like
don't say names.
Oh yeah, shit. There's people. Yeah, but I mean, it is.
Apart from me, I spoke for 15 minutes.
Yeah, you did. But no, I think like I always do these things and go, I'd probably go overkill and try and give like as much value as I can, and just talk. But then I've been to other events, like not Carlos's event, but other events where people have flown across the world to stand there for 20 minutes and talk about coffee, or like I know, do you know what I mean? Or just like, that was probably the wrong example, but do you know, like people have been.
Yeah, I felt like it was a personal dig here.
Yeah, no, I love that. I picked the wrong. That was because coffee was on the brain. They talk about something else,
I'm kidding.
You're like, nah, this is useless. I think if people, I've always think if people pay money for a ticket or an entry fee into anything or an online course or anything, it's like, just give as much value as you can. Even if, even if kind of 99% of the stuff is useless, but that 1% just changes everything for them, changes how they approach everything, or, I think that's really important.
All right, Philip. So just in case people are still confused, even though I gave you an introduction about who you are, tell us, who are you and what do you do?
Oh man, I've forgotten who I am. It's been like you eventually got me on here, but you've got me, like everyone's in the same boat, but you've got me at a time where it's like shit, like I'm forgetting weddings. I clipped on the mic for this and I have a thing, the Sony TX650s, like I have said, like if I had like £1 for every person who'd use them, I'd be a rich man. However, I couldn't even turn the thing on. Like that's how long it has been since I have properly filmed anything. I sat with a little recorder in my hand and was like, oh, how do I format this? And I thought that's scary because it used to be second nature, but I shoot weddings, I photograph weddings, I video weddings. I've been doing it for 13, 14 years now. Just kind of, I would say the way that I'd kind of put it is that I ticked all my own boxes. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that's a good way of kind of putting it. I started and if I could have listed everything then of what I could have done, which has been travel and I don't know, shooting cool weddings or celebrity weddings or, I don't know, everything else, or expensive weddings or all of those things, getting sent stuff, all the things that you could have listed kind of happened over a period of time. And then I'm kind of like cool with it. I'm at a point where I'm like, yeah, it doesn't really, none of that stuff matters now. It's nice. But I feel like I am the old guy now. Like I'm turning into, kind of like, even with style. And I think a lot of us, this is going off topic again, but I think a lot of us may need to watch in a couple of years. I've seen it happen with photographers who are at the top of the game, the best in the world. And they've suddenly just been left behind because they've not changed and they've not adapted. So that's kind of where we are. But I'll be I'll be shooting again. Hopefully in a few months. Yeah, for the rest of the year. So
with your dad cardigan in the back.
Well, yeah, there's a danger that's a whole topic in itself. You know how it goes. I'm gonna do my best to adapt, but whether people like it or not, I don't know. I think it's difficult. You've always got to keep one eye on where the entire industry is going with style. And yeah, I get told a lot that there's a million kind of copycats of kind of what I've done, and I'm like, yeah, but I've taught those people. But then I'm allowed to then go, you know, maybe after a few years, I'm allowed to go, yeah, I think I'm going to do something different now. I've still not figured out exactly what it is, but then there has to be that change there in style.
Yeah.
And I can see certain things in the industry, and I think if you look at photography and videography together as a package, and you look at the people who are like the lead, look at kind of influential leaders, if that's the right thing. So look at like Vogue, like where people are at the cutting edge of like what is current. Okay, now if you look at like photography in Vogue, it's shit, and the clips of video that people put on there as well. Like it is just rough and ready, and it's out of focus, and you know horizon lines are all kind of skewed. But that is kind of what is kind of coming round, and you see it more with video. And I think having 12 months of lockdown as well, I think having 12 months of people being used to Zoom video chats, and you know if you'd have watched television 2 years ago, you would have never have dreamed of seeing everything as rough and ready as it is now, and video calls. And I think that's maybe influenced or will influence where video goes. You know, perhaps I think it gives an allowance for things to be a lot more rough and ready. Yeah. What that is, I've not 100% figured it out, but you've got to move with it. You know, you can't keep doing the same thing for years, because I think you will get left behind. Yeah.
Well, you've obviously had a long journey in the industry so far. How did it start way back 13 odd years ago, or whatever you said?
Way back. So I was going to think of like a really cool story and just lie to you for 5 minutes. And then, you know, you see these things, everyone's like, oh, my dad worked for National Geographic, and that didn't happen. I started as a wedding photographer, and I moved into film. I moved into video because I think it was when the 5D Mark II, the Canon 5D Mark II came out, and these short wedding films just started popping up. And I came across Jeff Wood's work. Like, I'm sure you know Jeff Wood. I came across his work in the UK and was like, how the fuck can you do that? Like, this is just magic. I was like, this guy is a magician. And I stalked him and just watched his films and couldn't figure it out. I was like, this is just absolute witchcraft. And what I did was I said, I want to do that. I did the same as what everybody else does. I thought, right, I need to do that. And so all of my photography clients for a 12-month period, I got in touch with them and I said, can I do you a video instead? And what I'll do is I will pull you stills from the video footage as your photos. And I might give you 10 minutes of group shots as well, but I will give you a joint package just so I could have the opportunity to video something, because I was that into it. And yeah, I think I did that for maybe, I did say 12 of them or whatever. And then that was a portfolio. And then it just rolled from there. Then I just, I've not really changed anything too much in that, at 12, 13 years. Like, it's pretty much the same package. And the stuff that I teach on the workshop about getting certain jobs or, improving how you work in certain places and everything else, I did that, I think, from the start. I recognized it from the start. And so I just started refining that portfolio then to work in certain places. And I think that started from not showing the regional accents from the place that where I was living at the time. And so that meant that I could get some work in the posher area, which was a little bit further down the road. And then I'd do that, and then I'd do it again. And then for a few years, I only ever showed kind of like the destination weddings. And then, and it's just kind of refining. It's what you show to people is the work that you get. That's plain and simple. But yeah, that's how I started. There's nothing too exciting about it, really.
So what do you actually offer your couples now?
Do you know what? Literally the same as I did right from the very start. So they get short film, which is it's so funny. I feel like this is like the client meeting. I had a client meeting this morning, and I'm like saying the same thing, like word for word. But it's like you get your short film, which is like 4 or 5 minutes, and you get the longer 20-minute film. They get speeches, they get ceremony. So everybody gets that, and everybody has got that for years and years and years. Those 4 films are just like the foundation of everything. I think I spent about 3 years at the start of when I was doing this offering guest messages.
We've all been there.
And do you know what? But they got me so many jobs. The guest messages at the time got me so many jobs because they loved it. And even now, I was kind of like, right, okay, so they're not cool, but if I was getting married tomorrow, that would be something. If you said to your clients, if you said, you could have like 20, 30 messages from your guests that you can watch back in years to come, you'd be like, yeah, that's really cool. But it's just not cool enough. That's not cinematic, is it?
Yeah.
But
it's not fun to film.
No, it's definitely not fun to film.
Greg and I had a similar thing with the guest messages. We used to do them for like a year, and then we're just like, you know what? This isn't for us. Which is a bit selfish. But we were like, there's this new thing, a slow motion booth. Yeah, let's do that. So a couple of weddings we did, we set up, I can't even remember what the camera was, but we set up a little area, and for every guest, we'd get them to come along and, explode some poppers and go crazy. And then at the end of I think it was the 5th one, we were just like, yeah, this is too much mess, and the venues are getting really angry with us. So maybe this shouldn't be for us either.
I think mine was like when I was in my car driving away at the end of the night, and someone just was chasing after me, like waving their hands around, and they were like, "We didn't do our message," and I was like, "Oh, okay." And I got out the car. I remember got out the car with this like Canon, whatever it was. I was like, "Okay, I'll do it." No sound. Just shaky, just holding the car in the dark, and was like, "I'll film it, don't worry." And then I thought, I don't need to do this anymore. But then people love it, and
they do.
Maybe if you don't look at it at guest messages, and you maybe transmit this onto something else, you've always got to look at what's important. What if you were buying the product yourself? Like, what would you like, but no, those 4 main things have just been like the cornerstone, like the foundation of everything. And what I say to my clients now is, I can't think of anything else to put in as that basic package. Sometimes, every so often, someone will say, but could you do me a 40-minute film instead of a 20-minute film? And I'll say, yeah. And I'll explain how it will be different, but actually it's not that more difficult. It won't be as sharp, when it's cutting from clip to clip. But if that's the difference in them booking, then yeah, I'll do it. And you can only be so kind of, filmmaker is probably that's the word I'm using, because people just don't want to do these things. But yeah, it's like if someone came to me afterwards and said, can you play Celine Dion, or Gary Barlow over the top of, on my film? I'd say, yeah, of course I can. If that makes you happy, then yeah, it won't go online, but it makes my job editing easier. I'll say, yeah, I can put that track on, but I can't do the thing that I usually do. And they'll go, yeah, that's fine. That's happened so many times, dozens of times to me. And I've gone, yeah, okay, there you go. That's made my edit kind of hours quicker. I don't know. People are too precious to be, to be filmmakers. And like I say this, I kind of get into trouble a bit in the industry for saying this, but we film weddings. We're not like, we're not Oscar winners. We're not, we're not doing kind of really, we're not war journalists or whatever. We're filming weddings, and which is, one step away from kids' birthday parties, isn't it? So if people want, we can produce good products, but man, people get carried away with it, and you can to a certain extent. And you rip apart my website, and I'll use that language. I'm using that language for myself quite cleverly, because I know that that's what will get me bookings, which is what will buy me nice things and put food on the table. But I'm not going to sit with a load of wedding videographers and be the big dog or whatever it is, Mr. It's not about that, is it? You've got to, I don't know, keep it real, I suppose.
Yeah. So continuing on with the sort of client meeting type questions, you shoot solo, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, I've used. So I have a few things. So I offer a joint video and photography package. Now, the reason for that is because as every kind of few years passes, so we all know now, videographers are shooting photos, and all the photographers want to now shoot video. And from a financial point of view, it makes perfect sense, because you're getting double bubble, But I think the other big thing is that, the grass is always greener on the other side. The photographers have always think that the video guys have got it easy, and we always think that the photographers have got it easy. And I kind of have a regular cycle every few years where I'm like, no, I want to do more photography. I want to do more video. And so by doing this, I kind of keep it open. And if I want to shoot photography, I can. If I want to shoot video, I can. So I get a lot of double packages. But in terms of going shooting a wedding and having a second shooter, I think I've done that 3 times, maybe 4 times, not a lot. Okay. I think maybe early on I had a second shooter for a couple of things, but it's so rare that I have a second shooter. It's an option. It's an option in my pricing guide, because if somebody wants, and I explain this on the course online as well, that if you're going to do that, you can have different grades of second shooter. You can have a second shoot, you can have an assistant, you can have a second shooter, you can have an elite second shooter. And people will say, what's an elite second shooter? And I'll say, well, it's somebody else who runs their own business, who's taking weddings, who you're not paying, I don't know what people are paying kind of guys, but I know, there's people paying people 50 quid, 100 quid to second shoot. Well, you're not going to get, more often than not, second shooters are like people's wives and partners and husbands. But, you're not getting someone you're not getting someone kind of at the top of the game doing that, Yeah. You're always getting so I have those options in there. You have an elite second shooter, and they'll say, well, what do we get for an elite second shooter? And I'll say, you get someone at the top. So your footage is going to be, all of your footage is going to be crazy, crazy good. It's not going to be 50% of it's going to be great, and the other 50% is going to be, someone who doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would. Going back to the original point, I very, very rarely have had a second shooter. And I'm trying to think if I get myself into trouble kind of doing this now. But when some of the times I've thought it's just not even worth bothering. Like I've had second shooters, and like if anyone who has second shot for me wants to get in touch to clarify, it's not them, but I will explain. But genuinely, I've had second shooters and not used a single bit of the footage. And they've shot all day, and I've gone, well, I've just not used any of this because it's dog shit. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, I wanna talk about your approach to filmmaking. Because that was the one thing that kind of stood out to me the first time I heard you talk years ago. I'm not sure if you remember this, but you pulled out an article, and it was about one of your larger weddings at the time. And it was of a picture, and I think it was of the dance floor. And the article wasn't about you. It was about... sorry, the article wasn't about the couple. It was about you, because you were crouched down next to this tiny tripod on this tiny camera. And the article was, if I can remember correctly, about this guy with little gear. Why is he shooting this big wedding?
Yeah.
Am I right in remembering that correctly?
Yeah. So basically, it was a screenshot from a national newspaper. So it was a picture of the bride and groom in a national newspaper. Yeah. But in the corner of the shot was me with a 15 quid like tripod, and I think what someone had done is someone had took that and someone had put it into a Facebook group, and then said something about like who's the idiot shooting this with the little with the little tripod or whatever. And I think I used that. I didn't comment on it. In fact, I don't even know if I seen it. I think somebody just sent it to me at the time to bring it to my attention. But I thought it was a good reference point. For the talk or whatever it was. That's just, it's one of those things that shooting minimal, I don't know, everyone's kind of a gearhead, aren't they? But then people fail to look at what works. And now, so here's the deal, right? Being honest now, I could go back a step, if that's the right way of explaining it now. And if they seen some of the things, like I shoot most of my speeches and ceremonies with GoPros. There you go. Like cards on the table. So if they'd have seen the GoPro, they'd have been like, what the fuck is this? But the realism is that they do an incredible job. They do an incredible job, and they roll forever. And I can shoot it in 4K if I need to. I can stick 4 of them, 3 of them, whatever, on light stands around a room. They're not going to get in anyone's way. I can hide them. They can go as high up as I need them to go, or as low down as I need them to go. That's why they use them in everywhere in television, And the quality isn't Hollywood movie, but none of the stuff we're shooting is Hollywood movie quality. And but everybody needs to realize that it's not, it looks good, but it's still not at that level. And so for me to be able to, I don't know, look at it in a real world situation, again, off topic here a little bit, but if I can go into a church with like a few minutes to spare or whatever, I'm always kind of early and prepared and whatever, but if you can go into a church and you know that you have to set up, just to be able to, like, imagine the time that it takes you extend 3 light stands and hit a button. That's it. You're not kind of messing around with, maybe this kind of relates to the thing about the second shooter. I don't know, that's maybe why I feel you don't need that. But yeah, people just think, you've got a tiny tripod, or it's a tiny, I think the biggest one is like, where's the head on the monopod or the tripod? And I go, well, I why do I need one? And I even now I just screw the mono. I'd say this like when I was last shooting weddings, but I screw it into my camera, and it takes pretty much the exact same amount of time, and it's something less to carry. yeah, the same can be said about everything. The same can probably be said about the TX 650s. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Probably.
And the thing is, for the speeches and ceremony, using something like a GoPro is totally acceptable to the end client because they don't care about the depth of field. They want to hear what their auntie, uncle, mum, dad is saying. That's the important thing to them.
Yeah, and it gives you different angles. And for me as well, they've bought into the minimalism thing, or they've bought into the fact that, when we discuss it on a call or whatever, I'm saying that, I'm not the guy with the big camera in people's faces.
Yeah.
And so that is what they expect. They don't want that. And so why would you do anything different? But we all have these expectations of kind of how it's supposed to be. And even, this is like a settings thing, but I was using the GoPros for a while. I think I used them for a few weddings, right? And it was this kind of dark room, and everyone gets hung up on like ISO. And everyone's like, oh, how high can it go? Can you see in the dark? And the thing that I always see is like, well, we can't see in the dark, so why the hell do your cameras need to see in the dark? And I'd automatically, I hadn't been using like auto ISO. I'd been programming it, like, putting it in and thinking, judging it myself, and going, what should this be? This should be high. And then I think I made a mistake one day, and I automatically left my ISO on 200 or something in this like really dark room, and it was just candlelight. And then when I brought it back into the edit, I was like, holy shit, that's incredible. I was like, that is just like, it is just crystal clear. And that just reaffirmed it for me. I was like, there you go. Like, it's just, the GoPro is just perfect. We just don't need to start going, how can we see in the dark? And we don't need to see in the dark. If the church is dark or the room is dark, then it's dark. Don't try and make it lighter, unless you physically can't, see anything with it. But yeah, it's the same as I said to a couple this morning talking about weddings. I said, you make up your own rules. It was an elopement that I was talking to them about, and I said, you can do what you want, you can, do what is right for you, not what you think you should do as someone who's getting married. And they were like, yeah, we never thought about it that way. I was like, yeah, but that's the same for filmmakers, isn't it? Do what works for you. What is the sensible thing? If it's easy to just have a couple of cameras in a bag, and that means that you double the amount of coverage, and it means that you're relaxed and you're happy and you're positive going into a day, shoot it that way. Or you could do what you think you're supposed to do and have, cases and cases and cases full of gear, but you're stressed to fuck and you're shot to shit because you can't carry the camera because it's that heavy. Everybody does. I've done it before. I've thought, I need this. It's usually the very first wedding of the season. Everybody has like the latest toy or the new thing that's going to transform their lives. And years ago, I've done it. I think I bought like a big Ninja kind of screen because I was like, that's gonna be so cool. And then after 10 minutes, I was like, this is horrible. Or I had Sony I had a massive big camera, and I thought, I've got this. I don't even know the name of it, but it's big old pro, pro looking camera. I was like, this is going to be so cool. My weddings are going to look better than anyone else's. And then 2 minutes in, I'm like, I can't get the angles because this thing is really heavy, and everyone's looking at the knobhead with the big bricky camera, So
yeah.
Oh, the video guy, honestly, always in the way.
So after all this lockdown's over, what's going to be in your camera bag?
I knew you were going to ask it.
What's your go-to setup for?
Oh, I thought you meant am I going to change? I've thought of stuff. I don't know anything about cameras really, to be honest. So I'm not clever enough to change, to know kind of, and that's the God's honest truth. I think over the course of a few years, even though I had like a real kind of a thing with Sony, like now people are mentioning different models that are coming out, and I'm like, I don't know the different. I don't know if that's better than that one that you've mentioned, or what that one does, or what that one does, or anything else. So I think I'm going to go back to the same cameras. It would be foolish to, not to when you're a bit rusty. Style may change in some ways again, or I've not kind of figured that out just yet. But yeah, I'm going to go back to I've shot with Leicas for a few years. And yeah, there's a million reasons why. Probably not the reasons that it should be. But I'll definitely go back to shooting with my Leicas, and I might swap the GoPros out for there's a Leica version of the GoPro. Basically, yeah, they've brought something out. Probably does exactly the same thing. It's just 3 times the price. But I'm gonna I'm gonna investigate that and see if they're any good, and I'll take a look. I'll borrow one maybe and see it. But I'm not changing too much stuff up. Yeah, same old approach, I think, for when things broke. Eventually. Yeah, it's the gear's not broke. Yeah, but you can use the same gear and change the style, and like I said, I'm not 100% sure. My style changed to adapt with the gear. I started using the Leicas, and I'd been used to Sonys that were totally had all this inbuilt stability and everything else, and then I bought the Leicas, and they didn't have any of that. They don't have flip screens. They don't have any stabilization in them. There's about literally 2 usable choices for ISO. They are just like stripped back. There's no color profiles in there. Like, I don't have all of these choices. I have I basically have the color on, which is what is in the camera, or I use the flat kind of like log profile that's in there. But that's it. So I when I started using Leicas, I immediately started filming everything in slow motion, just because the slow motion was more sympathetic to the footage, because I didn't have the stability anymore. And did any clients question that at all? Not one. Like, I completely changed my style, and nobody picks up on it. People in the industry do, and they're asking questions about it. So I've no doubt that if I wanted to, I could go into my next weddings and do something totally different, and no one would care, because they'd still get a pretty version of the wedding, that they can watch back in years to come.
Yeah, that's cool. Was the Leica, is that the Insta360 you're talking about, the Leica version? Is that, am I right?
I don't know.
Don't know. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it is.
What lenses are you shooting on, just for the people who are interested in, whether you should shoot a zoom lens or, what kind of lens?
Yeah. So I've never used a zoom lens, like, ever. I've only ever used primes. I shoot everything. It used to be an 85, okay, and the people who've bought my course and everybody who kind of knows me knows how kind of preachy I've always been about 85. So when I bought the Leica, I literally I think there wasn't an 85 available, and I just went, the 75 is close enough. So I bought a 75mm and just started using the 75mm. No one can tell any difference. So I've been using 75mm prime for the last few years, and I also have a 35mm in the camera bag, but the 35mm only gets used pretty much for dance floor shots. So say, for example, it's a Jewish wedding or it's an Asian wedding, and the dance floor is like absolutely heaving, and
it's crazy.
And whereas you would normally be kind of on the edge of the dance floor shooting in kind of with your 75 or your 85 or whatever, on a nice kind of close crop on people dancing, it just doesn't work. And so the only option, and it's an acceptable option because the dance floor is so busy, is to just get in with everyone and literally just, you know, I think when it's so busy, it's acceptable to be close, you know. Other times of the day, like kind of preps, I don't know, there's people who do that style of video with the 35mm, and from the very first moment they'll meet the bride and groom or whatever, they'll be like, yeah, let me just stick this thing in your face. And then you're like, oh, okay. But yeah, I think it's acceptable on a crazy kind of busy dance floor, and I can handhold it as well. I can handhold it at that point because it's a wider lens. There's still no stability in the camera, but because it's 35mm handheld in slow motion, it works absolutely fine. But for the rest of the day, everything else for the rest of the day, 75mm on a monopod. Yeah, that's it.
Very cool, man. Very cool.
Yeah.
Always been like that.
So
Always been the exact same approach. If there's anything I could get rid of, it would be the monopod. Anything I could get rid of, but I just don't think I could. I'd probably be sacrificing too much in terms of that manual focus. So again, I didn't mention that then with lenses, but I've never had never used an autofocus lens. Like I tried one for something last year. Somebody said, put this on your camera. And I was like, oh, what is this? Like, what, I have to push a button and it locks onto something. I was like, whoa, that's crazy. I've just manual focus and always have. Don't have guides on the screen, you know, don't have any kind of peeking or any of that kind of stuff or anything that tells me, like a robot telling me whether it's in focus or not. I just trust my eyes and I go with it. Yeah.
With Jack was designed from the ground up and is tailored specifically for creatives. Whether you provide a service like design, development or photography, or offer advice to clients, With Jack is for you. It's focused on creatives. Insurance shouldn't be complicated, so With Jack has made every step easy. You'll deal with one form and talk to one Jack as you sign up, get covered, and move on with your day. With Jack is all about bespoke insurance for creatives. Simple. That doesn't mean more forms or faff, it means less. It's not about endless features and stale service. It's about one solid policy and the personal touch. Bye-bye unnecessary fuss. Hello, creative friendly insurance. Be a confident creative.
So Philip, when creating a wedding film, what's important to you? What's the kind of stuff you like to focus on?
So I think first and foremost, you have to make something that the couple are going to be happy with. But then I know that that's going to come if I just do what I do. Do you know what I mean? I say a lot that, you know, you could play it safe with like ceremony and speeches, but then everything else just be as creative as you can. Mm-hmm. You know, because I think you see people panic and they just take a camera and they go, oh, there's a face, so I've just got to point at that face. And it's like, no, there's always something that you can do. And I think, so if maybe that makes up, I don't know, 90% of the footage from the day. So if every bit of that footage, I try my best to be creative with it, then I know I'm going to be happy, because I know that I'm going to have creative shots and it's going to be, you know, something that's going to come together well.
What's a creative shot to you? Like how on earth would you turn a drinks reception, say, into something that kind of looks cool? Yeah. And to be honest, now it is second nature. And I hope it still is second nature after, after lockdown. That'd be crazy. But you do get used to doing the same thing, wedding after wedding after wedding. I think even that. I think just that example of
you never just point the camera at someone's face.
Yeah.
But then if you did have to just point the camera at someone's face, frame it properly. But for everything else, a drinks reception it's so simple. It's shooting through whatever you can, shooting through other people. And when I do that, it means that the person who's being filmed never knows that they're being filmed. But on the same hand, you build up a bit of a relationship with the people who are kind of hiding that person almost. And that can happen a lot, where you can say, I'm not filming you, don't worry, or you can engage with those people, have a conversation with those people while you're filming somebody on the other side of, a reception or whatever. And other things, it's whatever glass or services or, windows in the place, whatever you can find. And not every place has that. When you turn up to, and I'm just thinking whether you can, you can exploit that in kind of certain situations, but, you can turn up for jobs and know that you're going to struggle, but there's physically nothing you can do in those moments to make it what it isn't. But I think people starting off think that they can. And that's where I think you could have anyone. You could pick kind of whoever the best guy in the world is and say, right, you turn up to this social club in the back of wherever it is, this town in some place, and there's no windows, and they wouldn't be able to make that incredible. But then at the end of the day, the couple will still love that film because it's their film and they've captured, it is what it is, and you've captured the sound and you've captured the people. But what makes your films great, and again, this goes back to kind of culling that portfolio, and the only things that you show online is when you get those little bits of gold, you exploit it. I think one of the last ones, I did one in America last year, was it last year before? And I knew the venue was, the venue had no windows. And I knew that the actual day kind of only started at like 4 or 5 o'clock. I think American weddings kind of generally only start at like evening time. Yeah. And so I'm thinking, do I have any natural light here to work with? And I was like, no, pretty much. I have nothing. But then, and again, this is an issue. This is what comes back to kind of pricing. I volunteered to go to anything before, like the evening before, because I knew that, one, I'm in Los Angeles and I don't know anyone, and I could just be sat in my room or in a bar or somewhere, or I could just be with these people who I'd never met before and, just being part of the experience. And if you watch that film, those shots from the night before where I just said, do you want me to come and just chill out? They were the best shots. And I must have done that dozens of times over the last, whatever many years. Yeah. I've just gone, I'll do this extra little, thing just to get that light. But you can't make, you know what, if you haven't got those things, you can't make it incredible.
And do you use any lights? I don't think we covered that in your kit bag, but...
No. No. There has been times where this shows how professional I am, man. Where I've used an iPhone and actually, to be honest, it was lit, incredible. It does look incredible. But I had speeches once, and I thought, maybe I could just. In fact, I don't even think it was my iPhone. I think it was a guest, and I just said, "Can we balance your phone on a table?" And oh man, it was incredible. But then that got me thinking. I was like, oh well, if I've used this and it looked good, should I not be bringing lights? And I went, no. It kind of goes against, everything that I kind of believe in terms of, where does it then stop? And I've bought. Here's the thing: I've bought lights in the past, and this is like what I said before, start of the wedding season kind of thing. There's a company in America called Valer. A guy called Tim.
I love Tim. I love him.
And
one of my favorites.
He's so cool. And again, when I was kind of early kind of start of my kind of career, I was watching his stuff going, oh my God, how can you do this? How can you be so creative? And then we met in Rotterdam. Were you guys there? And you probably remember this. He was talking about one of the lights that he used. This like crazy kind of light.
The cube
and
light.
I was like, no. It was this big, stupid, clunky thing with like a car battery attached to it.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's right.
And I bought one. I was like, I'll buy one of them. That'll be cool. And it's never left kind of the office. I just bought it. It was like, I'm never going to use this like for anything. And it's probably kind of hypocritical in that there'll be photographers there with lights and I'll go, yeah, why don't you point that over here? Or, and it'll improve the shot a little bit, but that's not my call, they've done that. So I can jump on the back of that. I think that's acceptable.
Yeah.
You touched on something earlier about having this sort of combined photo and video package.
Yeah.
And that sort of makes me think like you probably were one of the first that did the hybrid shooter sort of thing. What made you come up with that?
The money. Well, no. That sounds like actually, to be honest, that's not in that way. Oh man, I had this conversation this morning. So what I did was, I said earlier, right, I had photography jobs and I wanted to turn them into video jobs. So I had a call from a couple. And again, look at this, when I explain this, right, look at this deeper in terms of like exploiting or trying every situation that you get, you think, how can I get that? So this was the kind of the Paris film that I did years ago, which everybody loved and blah, blah, blah. And so what happened was the couple got in touch and said, right, we want you to take pictures and or basically they didn't have the budget for both, something like that. And they said, we really don't want to kind of hire like this French kind of really expensive Parisian photographer. What can you do? And I looked at the situation and went, right, okay. So I'd done, like a few destination weddings, but they were regular weddings. And what I had in front of me was someone who said, we're super cool. We were both models. We've got this really good story to tell. And we've got 12 hours where we can just drive around Paris in the back of my car. We'll go to all the good places. We'll do this, we'll do that. And so I said, okay, right, I will do both, if that's okay with you. And I'll also take your group shots. And it was the group shots that was the clincher because they would have had to have got a photographer in and that would have kind of blown the budget or whatever. And so I did. For no other reason then, I was like, I really want that job. Like, I really, really want that job. And I don't know, anything could have come from it. And I've done similar jobs in the same places since, and they've not been good. They've not been as good, should I say. But I knew that everything would kind of fall into place with that. And so I recognized that, and I went the extra mile and was like, no, I'll do this, and I've not done it too many times since, maybe, 3 or 4 times. But the idea of rocking up to a wedding and going, right, I'm going to video your wedding, but I'm going to photograph it at the same time is like ludicrous. It sounds like the most stupidest thing in the world. But saying that, the couple that I spoke to this morning, I volunteered to do that. And I didn't, and that wasn't, so this is a kind of a weird thing. That wasn't because I didn't want to work with a kind of a photographer or whatever else. They were quite happy for me to provide both photo and video, but it was just 2 of them. It was just 2 of them, and it was this sounds kind of really cool, but it was 2 of them. It was 4 days in Africa, and I just thought to myself, 2 people and the couple is maybe a little overkill, considering it is, their big kind of, their big day, their big adventure. And so I just suggested to him, I said, we could do it. We can certainly, if you're happy to structure the day in a way that is kind of flexible to do both, then it's pretty simple to do both. You know, you just go, right, this 10-minute period we're going to do photos, this 10-minute period we're going to do video. And yeah, I've said forever, basically, people who do photo and video, not at the same time, by the way, just photographers who do video and videographers who do photo, you have to have a different style for both. And for me, how I've done this for years is that my video is the kind of opposite. So my video is 85mm, like tight, kind of close shots. But my photo is 28mm. Like I can, if I photograph a wedding, I don't use any other lens other than a 28mm. It's 28mm for everything.
I was going to say,
from the start of the day to the end of the day.
When you were saying that you were doing the photos in Paris, for some reason I was like, how is he going to do group shots with an 85? That's crazy.
No, I did have, I think I used the 24 or something. But again, it was stressful. It was an elopement. When I say group shots, you may be thinking, how's the group shots for an elopement? It was the couple for like 12 hours, but right in the middle of that, they just met the guests in the courthouse in town.
That's cool.
The guests experienced the wedding, stepped outside, had the picture taken, and then disappeared.
Yeah,
and then it was back to the photo shoot or whatever.
Yeah,
but it's exploiting that, and that's what I mean. If you get that opportunity, people are really precious about pricing these days, and kind of holding firm on certain things. And I said it on the last thing that we spoke about. If it means you volunteering to cover the evening before, because that could potentially get you the best film that you've ever made, then why would you not do it? Just to be stubborn, and there's things that I've learned over the years that I think if you have to put a price on everything. So if the couple cannot see the value, so if they get a price guide and they look at it and they say, oh, he will cover 4 hours the day before or the day after, and it costs X amount. That's cool. There's a value to that. Now that means that if you do volunteer that service, maybe to secure the job, maybe it's like it's the thing that gets you the job. If you do that, then at least more often than not, they look at that and they go, man, he's just give us like this couple of $1,000 kind of package because he's being nice. Whereas if you don't put a price on that in the first place, then it's just like, yeah, okay, you've got this. And that's the same for everything. That's the same for, I don't know, the guys who offer kind of drones and second shooters and everything else. They just go, yeah, it comes with this. So they never see the value of, that extra, whether it could be raw footage, it could be providing this, it could be providing that. If you don't put an actual value on that in terms of the price guide and everything else, that's kind of when like people will kind of undervalue or take the piss or whatever. But it
also works on the sort of other side, that if you've volunteered to film the couple hours the day before and you have that as an extra, you can then show people in future here's an example of the value that brings to the film.
Exactly. And you spot on with that. You may have volunteered that first time or whatever, but then that will bring people will book that particular service kind of in the future. It can work. I've seen it work in reverse so many times. The absolute killer one that you see for most videographers is the drone. So the regular wedding that they shoot, more often than not, whether that's at a country house somewhere and, everything happens in the same time of day and blah, blah, blah. So it opens up and it always starts with the drone flying over the house. So then basically every single time then the couple comes along, I've spoken to so many videographers who've had this, couple comes along and they're like, oh, but we get that as well, don't we? And so they then feel trapped to be like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. I'll turn up and, shoot the drone footage. And what happens is there's never value put onto that. If they had a price guide and it costs you, a few $1,000s or whatever to have the drone, that's when people start thinking, oh, wow, should we go for this? And then, people will buy them over the period of time, but then you can also, the leverage is important. And I'll be honest, leverage, as for me in the past, I've used, like I think I mentioned it before, the raw footage, or a clever one is a raw timeline. I think if you say the raw clips, then you have to give everything that you've, absolutely warts and all. But you can offer like a raw timeline where you can still kind of put everything into just a timeline in Final Cut. You still have a little bit of editing control, but you're basically saying, there you go, you get, a couple of hours worth of clips or whatever. And, it's just thinking of these things that I've used those kind of things, and it's all a personal kind of taste of the couple. Some couples want the night before, some couples will want, I don't know, it could be a second shooter, some couples will want the raw footage, and that it could be cultural things or whatever. Some couples will want like the extra length in the film. Yeah. And it's so competitive. Everybody knows it is so competitive these days that having those things, being able to, to use some of those things sometimes, it's incredible. It really is incredible. It's competitive for everyone. Like I'm in the same boat as everyone. I got an email last week from a bride who said, "Oh," and this is really weird because this never happens, but it's kind of say, "Oh, by the way, we're considering 4 people for our wedding. We want to be open and honest with everyone, but we just thought we'd speak to you all and let you know who they are." And the 3 other people had all recently bought my course. And this bride had come to me and said, "Oh, we're considering all these people because you've all got a similar style." Now I'm going, of course you've got a similar style because I've showed you how to do it, or you've watched this film or whatever. But then that's it. I've put it out there, but it's just a thing of saying, that's not the point. The point here is that, the couples are not, I know photographers who have held firm because they're a 30 grand photographer, okay? And that's how much they go out for to shoot weddings. Yeah. And literally they are on their arse at the moment and they can't get a wedding. And I've seen that historically over the last 5 years with so many people doing it because they're like, no, this is how much I charge for a wedding. Yeah. Well, if there's 50 more people in your little area doing it now, you can either adapt, or you've got to deal with it in some way,
Yeah, no, totally. This actually reminds me of a conversation we had with Richard Lang on the podcast, who I know that you know. Yeah. We had a really good conversation about pricing. Okay. So people, they do panic about that, don't they? It's pretty interesting. Yeah, I mean, where is the base thing? If you start up in the industry, where do you go? Who tells you how much to charge? That is the thing. So what people do is people look at the next guy and they go, he's charging X amount, so I'm going to charge this amount of money. And then they look at someone else, and then you can look around, and then in the end you'll be like, oh man, so there's some absolutely terrible kind of films out there, filmmakers who are charging crazy amounts of money, but that's not, they may have incredible connections. This is something that I say on the course is that, right, I know people who, I know lots of videographers who go, yeah, I don't charge under 20, 30 grand. But I only shoot 5 weddings a year. And you go, oh, well, that's obviously the dream, isn't it? But then what nobody understands is that you have no idea what everybody else's personal situation's like. Yeah. So, one of those people, the partner could be, hedge fund manager, and they have no money worries in the world, and they're only doing this as, kind of a bit of a hobby that brings them in some money. So they can afford to say, I charge 20 grand and I will wait and wait and wait. Yeah. And actually the truth is that they will get those 5 jobs. But for regular people who do this, they cannot
like hold fire with. They cannot kind of hold out on that.
Yeah,
because you got
a tough game to play.
Hold on a minute. Exactly. So, and that is why kind of everything, connections and knowing where your work comes from is so important. And whether that is social media or SEO, or you're networking with planners, or referral groups with other videographers. Some of those things work well for some people, some work well for others. And I think the sensible thing is to just kind of do it all, but try and do it well. And
yeah, no, totally.
Yeah.
So, do you have an approach? I was just thinking. I want to go back to how it's just you and the couple, moving away from pricing. I want to get back to your shooting. Do you have an approach when you start shooting with a couple? Like the good thing is about being videographers is that we can see how loads of photographers approach the couple session totally differently. Some play games.
So you mean so not the day from start to finish with preps. You mean the actual
just
with the couple.
Yeah, whenever you're with the couple, like what's your techniques there? Yeah.
So our telephone call initially, or our email conversation, I basically say to my couples that none of that stuff is needed. Okay. So depending on, it all comes down to a few things, but it's mainly kind of like their character, like how they are, their character, how comfortable they are, the scene, where we are, how the photographer is. But basically the very first thing that I say is, it is not required. And I say, go to my website, and I can point them in the direction of different examples, but basically say, right, this is an incredible film, and there is not a single bit of couples shoots at all. But there is this film where there's lots of couple shoots, but that is because it works for them. And again, one thing I didn't mention then was that could be time. The couple could have 2 hours set aside for kind of couple shots. So I put that in from the very start. I say it isn't needed. It certainly isn't needed. But then I say, if it works, it works. And how I go about that on the day is, I say that I will join, and I will work with the photographer, and I will join you on your couple shoot. Now, I will make a judgment call within the first 2 minutes. And that judgment call is, are they comfortable? What style is the photographer doing? If the photographer has a style of photography that is, right, you stand apart, you stand apart, look like hipsters, look miserable, hold hands, do that symmetrical kind of thing.
Yep.
As soon as they start doing that, then they're going to look like idiots on the video. The thing that I've done is I've explained to the couple in our telephone call before, and to say, you may look super cool on the photo, but you will look like idiots on the video. And I honestly, I'll say, because it is, the photo is a set, is an instant moment, whereas any awkwardness or getting into position, and that is just one of many factors. So I will say to them, I'll make a decision straight away. I would say more often than not within the first 5 minutes. And this is, again, how you work with a photographer as well, not just the couple, but I'll say to the photographer, listen, I'm not going to step on your toes, but I'm going to come along for 5 minutes. I'm going to get a bit in between, and then I'll leave you for half an hour to do your thing, whatever. Now, that 5 minutes might turn into 10 minutes or 15 minutes if it is incredible, if it looks supernatural. But working in that way has been so valuable to me in the past, because I've been able to say to the couple, it's cool, it's not working for me. And you can phrase it any way you want, but you can basically say, right, do you want me to, I'm going to get back to your guests now, or I'm going to go and shoot some details. And I had a groom in America last year who was just loving it. He couldn't believe that Like, he was having his group shots done with the photographer on this balcony, and he kept looking down and was like whooping me because he was like, "Oh man, you're just doing your thing. I can't believe you're not up here shooting the groups. That's so cool." And I was like, "Well, it's just you don't need it, you know. You don't need it." But I think giving yourself those options, you know, giving yourself the option to, what you don't want to do is be like, I missed, like, it could be golden hour and the couple are like supernatural, and what the thing is, that might only take up 3 seconds of your short film, but that could be the best 3 seconds of the short film, and that best 3 seconds of the short film is probably the bit that goes at the start, and then go beyond that and you think, oh, that could be the 3 seconds that a potential couple is watching the film on your website and they go, I love this shot. And then that is what gets you that wedding, you know, and that is all because you made a decision during couples shot, you know, to the couple shoot. So it's about keeping it open, but giving yourself the opportunity to, you know, I've years and years and years ago, there's example footage on the course of like drunk grooms, just because, and you're there filming them and you think, okay, this isn't feel for the photographer in that moment, because, you know, imagine you've got a pissed up groom, you know, with his eyes closed. They can't walk away, but I've given myself that opportunity to go, I'm going to leave it now, you know, it's not working, so I'm going to go and do something else far more important.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
that's it.
A lot of people, if they look at your sort of website and your portfolio of work, they would probably describe it as a luxury brand sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I guess a lot of people kind of strive to create that sort of brand for themselves. Yeah. So what's a few tips that you could give to people for creating that luxury feel around their own brand?
It's clean, kind of just clean white minimal. But then I changed. I was using like particular web themes, and then what I'd found, this is kind of similar to like the style of films and the course and everything else. But then, so I think last year I did about 10 one-to-ones, right? And most of them were by Zoom. And so this is kind of off topic, but it is relevant. So, and I'd say about 80% of the guys who came on and they were like, oh, right, I want to do like a one-to-one business thing with you, you know, online, and we'll talk about business and filmmaking and everything else. And I have a whole thing that I go through, and it takes, you know, a day to go through with them. But then 80% of them had bought the exact same web template as me. And most of the time they'd use the same text, and all the sections were kind of worded exactly the same. And I was like, oh man. But then, you know, again, it's going back to that. I've showed people how to do that. I can't complain about that. And, you know, what I remember, here's a story. Right? I think it was the very first year that I started off, I nicked I nicked a paragraph of text off someone else's website because I was being lazy. And at the time, at the time I was kind of like, well, I'm no one. I'm just here kind of in my little town doing this, and that word, you know, whatever it was, I think it was like, we like to work with, you know, creative and diverse couples or something rubbish like that. And I used that, and then, oh my God, it blew up into like the biggest thing, and it was all over the internet, and I was like, oh my God, and I felt terrible, and I was like, I'm really sorry and everything else. And do you know what? From that moment now, I get every couple of months, I get someone, like it'll be someone who I know will email me and go, oh, I just want to let you know that I've seen this person who's copying this of yours, and they've done this. And I'm kind of like, yeah, it's not the end of the world. No one's died, you know, that's it, you know, people do these kind of things. But so yeah, going back to it, super clean and minimal. I had this website template and people could just use the exact same thing. So I since kind of built my own, which was a bit of a lockdown thing, which was a bit of I made a second course during lockdown for SEO, but then part of building that course, I rebuilt my website so that I was kind of, I was doing the right things as well as saying the right things, basically. So I rebuilt my website from scratch, from, the basic kind of the free WordPress template that you get with, you don't pay for it, it just comes with it. I basically just converted that into, my site. And again, 6 months before then, I was using like a 300 quid, template. The 300 quid template took about 5 minutes to load. And when you do the load speed kind of tests online, I was like, shit, this is really bad. So I built my own, but yeah, going back to how you make it look, it's just that slick, clean, minimal. It's all down to fonts as well. It's just down to simple fonts. And I look back at my own examples of things, whether it's like an email signature or whatever, from, the things that pop up every so often. You're like, oh shit, did I really send that out? And I was like, oh, that looks horrendous. But then I think it's just like an eye thing. I think you just develop something over years. So like, I know people would copy their website and copy the template, but then the letter spacing wouldn't be right. And I'd like, oh, that looks a bit weird, or that looks a bit shit. And it's those little things that I like, not agonize over, but I look and I go, no, that has to be, I have to have, 5 points between each letter, or then I have this, or does it work with me adding this bit or this bit? But no, at the end of the day, it's just kind of that minimal kind of, it's just clean white space, isn't it? And everybody does so many people do the same thing. But if you can incorporate that into everything, it generally works. It's luxury brand. I don't know. That's what, if you compare just that one white screen piece of paper with just, I haven't got a logo. I don't think I've had a logo for years. And I remember once I did, I think it was one of the 9 Dots guys came and did like a 1-to-1 in the studio that we had at the time. And he came in and was like, oh my God, I can't believe you're cool enough to do that. Like, that's really sticking 2 fingers up to, to how we're supposed to work and everything else. And I was just like, I don't need a logo. We're not Coca-Cola. Like, we're not, like, people don't need to remember us in 12 months time or 18 months time. That's why logos are kind of good, because you walk down the street and subconsciously you're like, oh, these things just kind of pick up and, and you see them. You could have a logo that kind of makes you look cool on that first impression, but then what if the couple doesn't like the logo? They don't sit and, I know we're going deep here, but what if they don't sit and analyze it? But what if they go, I don't like him, I'll go somewhere else. That could be the logo, that could be the font. So in some respects, the less things that you have on there, maybe the better. I don't know. Overanalyze these things too much.
Well, I was gonna say, like, I remember when we went for the rebrand, because we don't have a logo either. It's just Cinemate in a very specific type of font on a black background.
Yeah.
And obviously, I mean, if you were to compare you and us, we do completely different films. But is that kind of mentality of like creating something that is just without an image?
Yeah, you don't, because then you're tied to. And I did that years ago. I remember making this logo of these two, like this hipster couple that had like tattoos on their necks, and it was a little illustration thing that I'd put together, and I was like, that's cool, because they're the kind of cool couples that I want to work with. And then you realise it's like, yeah, well, cool, the cool couples with tattoos on their necks don't have as much money and don't, and these things kind of can matter, if you're, trying to put food on the table or whatever else. But I remember going along with that, and then I seen a guy who's pretty local to me had literally just done a weird, like I thought mine was good-ish at the time. It's shit looking back at it now. But then I remember seeing like a copy of it and being like, oh man, I think that's like a clip art of David Beckham or something. But it was definitely copied, but but then you put yourself into a hole with these things. There's a guy in Spain, it might be, his name was Alejandro, who used to design logos, like illustration logos. I've not seen what he's done for years and years and years, but there were some super cool photographers in America, like the Fistful of Bolts people who, I think they were friends with him, so they had these cool logos designed. And then he started designing logos for other people, and I think he was charging like $2,000 for a doodle.
Oh damn!
But then all these other photographers started buying these, and then all of a sudden you've just got a group of photographers who pretty much have the same style of logo. So the guy who doesn't have a logo in the end is the guy who's won, because they all were offering like a luxury wedding service.
Yeah.
But then if a couple goes to that site and they see, you know, a hipsterish illustration, and they're like, oh no, I'll go with this other guy because he's more Vogue than me or more Tatler than me. You've not done anything to do that. You're just kind of blank white space, aren't you, you know? Yeah.
So, Philip, obviously thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today. Where can our listeners find you? Other than on the beach.
At the moment, on the beach. Oh man! And in terms of the website or socials, or
all of them.
Man, I'm shit with all of them, but website is kept is kept up to date. philipwhiteweddings.co.uk is where most stuff is. Instagram is not a kind of a regular account of what I'm up to kind of most recently, although that may change in the future with YouTube as well. But yeah, either one of them, you know, I think I come up as kind of one of the top hits just for my name. But yeah, who knows? I'm not doing, this is my first Clubhouse outing. I feel like the celebrity who just typed in, was it my name or something onto Twitter, you know, on his very first thing. I feel like that was it. When I told you I just listened into someone's conversation and just felt totally wrong about it. I've gotten over it now. But I think I'm just, you know what? I think I'm realizing that everyone else in the same boat here, but you know, as bad as this situation is, weddings are going to start kicking off again soon. And I think it's worth kind of using this, it's worth using this time wisely. And I don't mean that, I think in a business sense, I'd be saying, I've been trying to push kind of like the SEO course to people, and from a sense of saying, you need to get your website in order, you need to do this. But I think it's more sensible now to kind of reset and get kind of prepared and organized for the onslaught that's going to come, because, you know, I didn't shoot that many weddings, and I think the couples that have postponed for me or rearranged for me, I've not had any issues. You know, they've all been able to kind of, I've been able to fit people in elsewhere, and it's all been fine. But then I've got friends and I've got people who I talk to who on a regular year, they were shooting 35 weddings. And so people in the same boat, that what everyone is doing for this year and next year now, they're just squeezing twice the amount of weddings in, and you know, people are going to be fucked mentally and physically. And you know, I think we're going to see there's going to be there's going to be a lot of backlogs next year, but you know, there's going to be a lot of people don't talk about. Now, this is the cliche thing that nobody kind of talks about the mental health of everything, but fucking hell, people are struggling right now with everything that's going on, and you know, it's important to kind of do something, or you know, if you find, kind of reach out to everyone you know, or just, you know, people don't talk about it, but you know that the people are going through, you know, especially with social media, you know, I can, you know, people can post on social media about their incredible careers right now, you know, from weddings that they've shot for the last few years, but they're pretty much crumbling on the inside. I know a lot of people who, you know, and if I know a lot of people who are doing that at the moment, then I just think the industry has got you know, thousands of people who are doing the same thing. So yeah, it just took us on a little negative route to kind of, but no, it's
just to wrap up. Let's all get sad.
no. It's I don't know. I kind of thought it's worth mentioning because no one goes on social media and talks about how shit they're feeling, right? That's just the thing, isn't it? But people are struggling. How we deal with that? What can I do? I don't know. What can you guys do? I don't know. Just kind of bring it out there that everyone else is in the same boat, I suppose. But try and look after yourselves when you've got 70 weddings next year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the takeaway is like if you can get through this situation, it's only going to get better. So if you look at it like that, with that kind of positive attitude, and I obviously don't just mean like lockdowns. I mean like once you've shot all these weddings, once your backlog's up and running, and the economy is back, like if you've survived this, you could survive anything. Like, let's be real here.
Yeah.
Like,
that's
so
true.
just, you know, take it in your stride, and, you know, if there's a local community, you know, branch out. I know a lot of newcomers who kind of struggle with that part of the business. Like, get to know your local suppliers and everything else, and help out. And yeah,
it is. Yeah, I think that's where the group things are important. I'm not members of many. Like, I don't do Facebook, so I'm not kind of within those groups. But I know some of them that are just so good. You know, where there's only maybe 20 people in there, and you know, everybody looks out for each other, and if someone's got a problem, they put something in. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. It's, you know, join in and share the loads. You know, if people can help you with certain things, you know, that's, you know, do what you've got to do for kind of everyone at the moment, because it's pretty shitty, but you know, we'll all get through it.
We'll all get through this, absolutely. Philip, obviously, I mean, Greg and I know you as an educator. You have been educating people for many years, and you've briefly mentioned a couple of online courses. Where can people find your educational stuff?
Yeah, do you know what? That's the shit salesman in me. They're not even...
Well, that's why I'm mentioning it, because you weren't going to mention it.
Yeah,
So...
you know, the biggest reason for that is because I kind of... Again, maybe off topic a bit, but I spent the whole kind of first few lockdowns working on that. And like I said, I built a second course, and I did every time there's a Black Friday thing, I do the whole sales push. But it's not me. Like, I don't mind making the courses. I don't mind standing up in front of people and doing it, you know, but being that kind of the salesman who does that, it is horrible. And when we started this off, we worked with these guys in America who looked after the sales for it. And there's probably people listening and people who will hear this who they'd get emails from me, and it'd be like, hey, I'm going to show you how to make $1 million. And I'd be like, oh man, that has come from me. But then honestly, the worst part of it is that the more salesy and the more American you are with that, the more people buy the course. So you're like, shit. Yeah. And then, so I'd do like a Black Friday offer, and, you know, and follow it up with an email every single day, and do that kind of thing. And I'd get bits of abuse coming from it, and people going like, oh, you sell out. You know, I used to appreciate what you did, but I hate all this now. And I'm thinking, I feel exactly the same. I don't want to be the whole kind of salesman. So I think the reason that I've not pushed anything like that recently or on this kind of podcast was just because I was like, I just want to get done and be back to kind of creating. So I changed everything. The learning platform that I had set up, it used to be kind of my own used to be under Philip White branding. And because I made the SEO course, I changed it to Wedding Industry Masterclass. Yeah. And the reason I did that was, it was one eye on the future. And I kind of thought that I can bring in anyone, you know, and the idea is that if anybody wants to run a course on something, I mean, the video course has changed my life. Like, this is, like, I'm not going to lie about this. It is 100% changed my life. It has just totally blown me away. Like, I was like, I can't quite believe the volume of people, like the volume of videographers out there. You think, oh, and that's just a small percentage because not everyone's obviously buying this thing off me. So I changed it up. The link on my website is still there for courses, but it doesn't specifically mention me on it. It is Wedding Industry Masterclass, but there's 2 courses. There is the video course, which has been out for about 2 years now. It's still completely relevant. You know, there's still people buying it every week. It is a hell of a lot cheaper now than it was 2 years ago. But that's how things are, you know. You know, you have to do that. But yeah, there is an additional SEO course that I made a few months back, and again, I put my heart and soul into it and spent months and months and months just basically saying, if you want to change up your website and if you put the work in, you will get the results. And it's simple as that. There's a little bit of information on the site about it, but basically it fucking works. It works. Like, I got this, I took a booking this morning for, like, I guess the incredible wedding in Africa, and I can follow the chain back because they looked at something else and they initially Googled something that I had SEO'd a page for. And so all the information is on there, but if you put the work in, you will get daily inquiries for places that you decide, or types of wedding that you decide. You know, I'm a big kind of advocate of that, but it's SEO's a bit geeky and a bit, I don't know, not technical, I suppose, but I would say it's an alternative to social media, and, you know, in terms of bringing you work in. But like I said before, put your finger in every pie, make sure that you know, every avenue's open to bring you in, you know, new inquiries, I think.
Awesome. Well, Philip, thank you very much for joining us.
It's been a pleasure, guys.
Yeah, and if you want to find us online, we are cinematefilms.co.uk. We have an Instagram account and Facebook, and we are now on Patreon. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, join us on Patreon, where for the price of a coffee every month, you'll get access to all of our Clubhouse Q&As and other bonus content that won't be available anywhere else. If you don't have any money to give, that's totally okay. Hit the subscribe button and you'll get your usual podcast for free. Maybe just leave a review so that we can grow this podcast. However,
in the meantime,
enjoy your life.